And we're back. Hold on, I gotta. Hey, okay. All right, we are back. Sorry about that. And yeah, it's pretty still a confusing thing for me. Okay, so we were talking about I was talking about how homeless people are important, and we can move on from that. And
let's start there. I think go ahead.
So we're leaving. Let's just get right to the astrology part of it, and then we can go from there. You always talk about the thing we're leaving, going into the thing we're going into. So real quick, Matt Lucas lightning round style. What are we leaving? Really quick, go. What are we leaving?
We're leaving 2 months of initiation. We're leaving 2 months of trying things out. We're leaving 2 months of yang at various level yang qi, because the flow of the year is basically an exchange, a handoff between yin, which has been so prominent during the winter, and into yang, which just leads it into a different type of season.
Okay.
Right. So there's a handoff that's happening, and it's gradual. It's not just binary. So the first 2 moons were basically this exploration and this wriggling forth of yang qi from underneath the sort of weight and the obligations of yin. So it's like grandmother, taking little boy to school. And so that's always the image. The image throughout the year is usually like elderly grandmother, kind of starting to be forgetful, taking the young little upstart to school so he can learn, so he can grow, so he can become mature and into the fullness of summer, right? So that's always the image. So we've had 2 months of the little guy running around, and there's been some watching of from grandmother yin. But now that's, as we got toward the end of the second moon, that guidance is gone. We're more on our own at this point, going into the third moon. So that's really how we become responsible. How we actually walk with our own levels of preparation is actually what's really key in the third moon. It can be an incredible time. We're at this sort of halfway point of spring, and the recommendation of the third moon is how we maturely take these new opportunities into fullness. Okay. So it's not about like everything coming together, in its fullness yet. We're not quite to summer, but it's really about what kind of integrity we show in our preparations, what kind of maturity we show in our ability to respond to circumstances.
All right. So you're mentioning the third moon. We are going into the third moon. We're going into the third moon.
We're into the third moon.
Now. Okay.
It's today.
It is?
It is. Today is the first day of the third moon.
It's the first day of the third moon, people. Course. Yeah. Make sure you got beans.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going into the third moon. I feel like this third moon is going to be great for roller skaters, but who else is going to benefit from this? What's the chi of this moon? What's the name of it first? What's it called?
We just begun the first day of the metal dragon moon. So it's a dragon moon. Yeah. Right. The dragon moon is always the third moon. And the idea is that the opportunities we have in the third moon are basically how we're able to right the ship, because obviously the first 2 moons can be unstable. They have permission to be unstable. They have permission to be immature. But it's at this particular point in the third moon where we actually got to get our shit together. And so we can either right the ship by demonstrating kind of solid leadership and maturity, or we have the potential for it to all unravel completely. From a dragon's perspective, it doesn't matter. Both are valid, right? So it's not constructive, right? We're not like we can think we're climbing a mountain, but from a dragon's perspective, it's all the same. Yeah. Whether we tumble down the mountain or we progressively climb it, it's all a reflection of basically how we come with our own integrity and our impeccable behavior. So the various ways that we show that are basically going to bring progressively good results, or actually set us back. Failure is an opportunity to reset. It's an opportunity to learn. And and grow, and get rid of old and obsolete habits of that perhaps like come out of our impulses. And the impulses of the first and second moon are fine, but like once you start getting in the third moon, things get serious. There are bigger consequences.
Yeah, it's funny because I've just been sitting around playing lots of guitar and songs, and the amount of music that I've written about, like one of my favorite songs to play, and one of the songs that I get a lot of the most mention on if I do play it live, is the song, and the chorus is like, "When this is all gone, it's all the same to me," and it is. It's talking about that. It's like there is no who gives a shit about, I mean, personally, I don't care about any of the sustainable. It's feng shui. Just get rid of all the things that aren't working. And so we can make space for the new things that are, because in a process of building anything, we're going to make mistakes in the process. I mean, if life is art, you're always, there's a lot on the cutting room floor all the time. And it seems like the energy of the dragon is very vast and very big, but the metal refinement is like, we need to start refining on more of the like larger level.
It's,
when I say it doesn't, it's sorry, go on.
No, and you're absolutely right about like the grandness of dragon. The perspective of dragon is tends to be very broad. I mean, think about it this way, and this is what I wrote about in the recent email blast that I sent out, is that think about the dragon. Of all the earthly branches, it's the only one that's actually supernatural, and this is not accidental. It reflects this sort of fundamentally unknowable origins of life's capacity to flourish. So there's everything that you can say about a dragon, you can say the opposite, and we could say that also about nature, right? So like, this is kind of the point. There's a parallel here, in order to harness, this kind of majestic and complex potential, which we're starting to see in the third moon, exactly how vast, that we've just been messing around, in the first and second moon. And that's kind of what we're supposed to do. But once we start to see like the vast and complex potential of nature itself, it's like really about how we're able to meet it. So it's like about, the end of the second moon started giving us opportunities to learn how to follow, and to learn how to curb sort of personal impulses and these tendencies we have for like excessive behavior, excessive ambitions, things like that.
My again, same song. There's this line in there that says, because I'm always talking about the difference between intelligence and wisdom, and I always say smart people are the stupidest people on the planet, because they rarely, oftentimes it's the Oppenheimer thing. Like, you're this awesome physicist and you get this sweet job, and then you end up creating a nuclear bomb, and you're just like, oh God, what have I?
Like,
and so,
whoops.
Yeah, it's the idea is like, when does intelligence start aligning with wisdom, and knowing that. Because we all love it. This is why, like, when I went to Washington D.C., it made me sick, because it's not like, just metaphorically, I was like, this is bullshit, because I'm walking around looking at all these. I'm walking around looking at all these amazing inspirational quotes from amazing people that have been, probably assassinated, and they're calling for wisdom. But and we're walking around, and that one quote of like, it shouldn't be, you can't solve problems with the same minds that created them. It should be, hey, please stop trying to solve problems with the same problem. It's like no one's listening to that. No one's listening to wisdom.
Well, it's very interesting. Like in the third moon, this is kind of like my speculation, what I think is really kind of amazing, is that in the third moon, we'll see a lot more of the dance between the ghostly nature of our country, and the sort of Titan nature of our country. If we study the 6 realms, like, both of those atmospheres are very active in this country, probably more than the human. Actually. So there's like somebody that's always like a strange mix of ghost and Titan. They're always sort of chasing things. And that's the danger of this third moon, is that if we spend our time chasing some kind of or clinging or chasing after some sort of fantasy, we basically bring misfortune. And that misfortune could actually be injury, or it could actually be chronic illness. This is the thing that I always think is really fascinating. In the first and second moons, we have an opportunity to completely reinvent our situation, which means all of our chronic illnesses actually come up to a place where we can access them, and we can actually change the habits that actually made them real. Right. And I think in the second moon, we had a little bit of our chance kind of closed off a little early, because insecurity leads to like falling back to old karmic impulses and old karmic patterns, which then just kind of cover over that opportunity to get rid of any kind of chronic illness. Mm-hmm. Right. So like those doors maybe closed a little early for us. But in the third moon, we can, really make our situation much, much worse. Every year, there's an opportunity to kind of reinvent ourselves, and also help treat the ways that we propagate ourselves to die. Mm-hmm. Our habits basically inform, and our fate inform the ways that we die. Like our life dictates how we die. And so, there's an interesting dance between that. So not to get too morbid, but that's the topic that's up right now. Everybody's concerned about death and dying. And, on that particular point, I would say congratulations and condolences. You have discovered your inner connection to nature. Like nobody gets out of this alive, so it'd be a good idea to kind of like drill down on that experience and really get in touch with that, because you're going to have to encounter it sooner than later.
Yeah, there are people that say, we need to treat aging and sort of that withering away as a disease, but also they need to treat that mindset as a fear-based mindset of trying to like remove yourself from the fact that no matter how many
from nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I have a worm bin out there, right? And I've been making dirt, and I don't care what your bank account looks like if you will become what that worm bin is becoming.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And hopefully you do. And that's pretty fun. It's the old samurai meditation. And I did it a lot when I was a kid. And I remember it changed my life. Was look at your hands, look at your feet, look at your mom, look at your dad, look at your bicycle, look at everything in your life and know it can be taken. So you're not freaking out when it does. So you don't just like randomly think toilet paper is going to save you. It's like,
right.
And so you're not being an asshole to the one person that's got the little lady that's got a bum shoulder that can't just like every time she takes a shower, like, she doesn't know how to use the computer well enough to Google how the rest of the world shits. You know what I mean? It's
right.
Like, and
well, those things keep us from being generous, and the generosity is actually what allows us to reclaim our humanity. That Buddhists have very similar to the samurai thing that you mentioned. Very ruthless meditations about like disconnecting yourself from your attachments to the natural world, just like imagining everybody you know and love like decaying in front of your eyes. And it's pretty grim.
No, but
it's fine. But they're happy.
Yeah.
And maybe part of that is just their ability to kind of oh well, shit just went south. Okay, let's go have lunch, or like let's work with what we have rather than panic about what we want.
Okay, so I know this isn't an advice column, but the energy of this this dragon. So you've been writing on it, but could you give us a like brief synopsis, like if you were to the elevator pitch for a person like this goes up on Instagram, right? And this is where we get most of our wisdom.
Right.
It's you gotta don't bore us. Get to the chorus.
Yeah, I'm not.
You know what I mean?
Okay, right. Well, it's about like being, hopes and dreams were very in vogue in the first and second moon.
Okay.
And now it's really about like
gonna be the best year ever. It's gonna be the best. This is my year.
I'm ready. I'm stepping into my fullness.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So like, but the third moon is really about it's all of this is being replaced with a very hardy realism. The idea is that like what works should be obvious, but if you feel like you need, it just requires like more investment, more hopes and dreams to make something happen, then you're probably wasting your chi. It's really about looking at what's working. It's really about looking at what is obvious as the sign of like actually what's working. Because everything that you're wanting actually does look to meet you. But if it's not, if it's not obviously working, then, you need to re-strategize. It's about looking after your resources with a pretty ruthless, in a kind of ruthless way. That's not a bad thing. It's actually a good idea.
Well, that's that thing that I was talking about, how we're going to see that we're a internet, or we're an information-based culture, right? We don't produce that much. I mean, we do have trades and great electricians, and good. Chevy's actually coming out with some good stuff. I like the new Ford line, but we're still treating it like the assembly line. And here in a lot of these major cities, we're going to realize that most people don't actually have to commute and near as much as they do. We can do a lot of our work from home, and if one of the things that I noticed in, like, I remember going to a couple big of these tech campuses, and I noticed that when they move into your neighborhood, if one moved in, and some of them have, if these places move in, our rent's going to triple, but it's going to triple with people that get free coffee. They're going to get free lunch. They're going to get all these, because these campuses make it to where all the businesses around, all their rent's going to go up, all the real estate's going to go up, yet a lot of people are commuting in, and they're not actually supporting. I've talked to
right. Now they're deserts.
Yeah.
Right.
And because everything is brought into these campuses, so you can stay in happy and working. That's why I made this goofy. It was like 8 or 9 years ago. I made this little blog post about how I think the Google campus is the first joint venture between Disney and North Korea, and it's just like, how can we keep everyone happy and working?
They made a movie about that, I think. Yeah.
Fun.
I'm trying to think of what it was called.
But I think we're all going to realize, like, if you don't have to commute every day, you might get a couple hours of your day back, which is better for your health. It's better for your stress level. It can be better for your relationships. It could even let you know that maybe the relationship you're in isn't the one you want to be in, because now you got some
right. So you're not distracting yourselves with commonly wasteful, routines of life. Well, also, I think that there's a lot of patterns. Actually, the thing about Dragon is that you're not just looking at the individual opportunities, you're looking at also like larger patterns of change. And so what you're referring to is something that's occurring, is this like large scale shift in the operations of society and nature. Those will continue and accelerate. And so it could be very easy to get overwhelmed, in this moon. So it's important to just kind of like ease back on your stimulation, and because there's going to be so much information. Because things are going to continue to amplify and continue to change. I know that's probably not a revelation for a lot of people, but like the idea of the third moon is this sort of like large scale shifts, potential for large scale shifts. And since we've already got that momentum going so far this moon with these societal changes that we're encountering, that I would say expect that to really amplify and continue. And so the advice is really just about trying not to immediately digest it for meaning, like actually just let it just continue to unfold. Because everything you can say about the dragon, you can say the opposite, which means that everything you can say today will be different tomorrow. So like, this is something to keep in mind, if we're getting stressed out about particulars and particular pieces of information, we can get off track of just paying attention and being in a place of observation, because observation and synchronicity is something that's available to us in this third moon. And but in order to do that, you need to not fixate. You need to not like grasp. You need to just kind of like take in as much as you can and look for the opportunities and the ways of re-strategizing, because all of those things are available too. At the individual level, we can kind of surf along with these changes and potentially, take yourself to a better place, or something that actually more fits your aspirations, rather than just, accepting what's coming at you. Like I said, at the beginning of the recording, it's like, now you've gotten yourself in this place of self-pity and anxiousness. Like a third moon would probably ask you, what are you going to do about it? So these are opportunities. Like vigor is returning. We're getting more health and wellness in terms of like the sun, more heat, more warmth is coming. So I mean, these things are these things are more available. Lethargy, winter's like lingering aspects of lethargy are kind of fully taken away. So there is opportunity here, not just anxiousness. It's but it really does require us like accessing our integrity, our impeccable behavior, our levels of preparation, and like really drilling down on what we want. And if what we want isn't actually available, we actually can change things. We can make dynamic shifts. We don't have to sit still. And I think that's an important message for the third moon, for people who are just panicking about the loss of their life, is to say, try a different one.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of people call, some people that I haven't talked to in 10 years, and they're just like, hey, I just had to call. They called me and they're just like, we know you're going to have a positive spin on this. And I was talking to them about the way I've always viewed yoga, because I do yoga as a martial art and martial arts as a form of yoga, and they are the same. But you and I've had this conversation before about yoga is the cleaning of your garage. And so it's we see a problem, we have this clutter, we have this thing that's not working, and so it's up to us to decide how we're going to change. So you're going to take this and you're going to put it in that box, and you're going to do this and you're going to put it, and then it's the path of letting go, and that can be hard. It's hard to like, maybe like how many people still hold on to their old college papers and shit like that. But then that is prepping you for what the martial arts does, which is we're in a moment now where we need that martial mind. Is okay, so you have your neighbor and they're letting go of everything, and you're like, good job, way to let go. But that's prepping you for the day maybe you come home one day and now your garage is on fire. And now can you let go of everything in that garage on that level, right? So because I've experienced that. I've had to throw everything away before. I've gone down and I've seen it all flooded before. I've gone down and had it stolen from, I've caught people stealing it, but there's all these other levels of the way that we have to impart change. And as you say, like sometimes compromise doesn't include you, right?
That's right.
So we have to start looking at many, it's like, I have friends that are hairstylists, and I was like, yeah, of course, like you're going to suffer right now. But just imagine how busy you're going to be when everyone...
It's like, crazy.
Yeah.
I obviously need a beard trim and I can't get one.
Yeah. I was like, seriously, just start warming up your wrists now, because people are going to come running out, just like, everyone's going to realize like, oh shit, my hair isn't this color. And like now, again, like you're going to realize like, is the person you're with now, you might realize how much...
You're under pressure.
Yeah, how much technology is really used for them to look like that.
Right. Exactly.
And
well, yeah,
like they're gonna get busy.
Yeah, I think that it's changes that may come in this third moon aren't necessarily going to be gentle. I mean, metal dragon, amplifying the metal dragon aspects because the native element, just to get technical here, the native element of dragon is earth, which represents a level of stability. And it's also, if you look at the cycle of time as given by the 12 animals, there are 4 corners of earth. And the 4 corners of earth in this sort of circle of change between the earthly branches. So this can happen in every year or every day, right? Where we go through these 12 animals in their various, configurations, right? They're sort of modified by the elements. So, but occasionally they're in their native element, but the native element basically serves as this sort of like way of understanding them in their baseline, and then they're modified by the elements through the rotation of time. Point being, in this circle of change, there are 4 points of earth. In the circle of change, the 4 points of earth represent sort of a calibration, a rectification of the annual chi that's happening. We're in that, right? We've just begun that first rectification of the year, the first calibration of the year. It's usually given by Earth and the Earth dragon, which is all those things that we've already been talking about. Now, that dragon is modified by metal. Which basically sort of ups the intensity. Earth dragons much more caring, can be a bit heavy, can be a lot. But there's a nurturance there that comes with the earth, a level of stability. With the metal dragon, there's not as much stability. It's actually the refinement is more like a kind of like a routing machine, you know, a little bit more high speed, a little bit more high intensity, you know. So those sort of like grouters or routing machines, like, yeah, if you get close to one of those things, you get your arm ripped off, right? So like the idea is that kind of level of intensity is going to be with us, you know, for this moon. And some of us will be fully prepared to handle it, but it's basically upping the stakes because the intensity is there. So a little bit of high speed movement may happen at times, you know, during the course of this moon. And it just kind of puts us back on our level of preparation. But the point being is that, like, we've already had a little bit of a strain, you know, there's generally some kind of innocence, you know, that occurs in the early part of spring, this kind of hopes and dreams kind of innocence. Well, I was already put under a little bit of pressure last moon, and this moon is gone, right? I think that could be useful, you know, kind of wake people up and put them right into their place of necessity, whether it be you know, physical necessity in the world, I just need to get my needs met, or the necessity of like actually what really matters to me, like truly matters to me, right? In that place of honesty. But that kind of the loss of that innocence can also mean, especially in a metal rat year, that for some people, if you know, if we're basically framing our conduct and choices in terms of solely in terms of like whatever it is that maximizes our competitive advantage, you know, if we're acting like, you know, titans, you know, trying to make sure that we have all the resources and power, we're basically fostering an atmosphere of mayhem. You know, it's like it could get pretty crazy, you know, depending on the circumstances of what we're dealing with. It's not about the moon, and you know, it's about like the underlying conditions that come into that moon, you know. So if we're in a loving, peaceful, you know, community, we're all working together, that maybe there's a little edginess, you know, because we're like really waking up to like what drives us, you know. But if we're living in a society of, you know, cutthroat, you know, that I have to say that like it's going to be even more important to look after the grandma in the grocery store, you know. Like if we can't do that, you know, people could get trampled in a lot of ways, or like government response could be a bit harsh, you know. But in any ways in which we're trying to justify our aggressions, you know, trying to get what we want, you know, we're basically creating an atmosphere of like severe karmic consequences, just not, you know, collectively, individually, if not now, you know, at some point in the future. Basically really showing our character this moon.
You know,
and that's the important thing.
You know, that video that I was talking with you about the other day, that so many people sent it to me because I'm always talking shit about how afraid I am of monkeys and how our culture is on their best day. You know, we're always, we go in monkey mind, right? Reactionary, emotional, tribal, and watching those monkeys attack that one monkey over that banana. And then you see that like people going over, like no one knows why they need toilet paper. They just know everyone's running towards it, so I'm running towards it, you know. And, right. I mean, they know why they need toilet paper, but in that process, how do we? You know, there's that. I wrote that thing called, you know, if you're not seeking wisdom, wisdom's seeking you, and you want to find it first. You don't want wisdom to find you. And I think we're in a time right now of seeing that wisdom's sort of finding us right now, and hopefully we're strong enough to listen. And it hurts a little when it finds you. It's how many people in martial arts class have you seen complain that they don't want to learn to fall? You know, it hurts your neck, or it's you know, it's uncomfortable. Right. And then I can't tell you how many people have walked out of a class where I'm teaching people to fall, and then they're cyclists, and next thing you know, they come in with a busted up face. You know, and you're like, hey, we all fall, and that wisdom is there telling you that gravity affects us all. And we should learn at least how to like have some decent tools around it. And it sucks to learn to fall while you're hucking it over the, you know, the tracks, you know, like And it really sucks to like try to remember that lesson that you walked out of in real time. And,
right.
And so,
yeah, a sense of perspective. A sense of perspective is what is really what's required. Because, for all that cautionary talk about like people being extreme with each other, because they're under pressure to get what they want. Like it's just a little bit of perspective, I think, that can change our behavior, or gets us pause, just to recognize like how ruthless we can be. But then also, if we can actually access a little bit of perspective, then, we have really do have an opportunity in this third moon to really step up, and step up in a good way for what we know matters to us. Like, if we're trying to live a good life, whatever that means. So if we're trying to live a good life, like I think you've said this a lot, like it really deepens in its meaning when it's under pressure.
Stress is our best friend. And we're also seeing right now, we have a culture that is like, a meme based culture, and it's always about live life, choose love, not fear, gratitude over gratitude and abundance. But like, if it is truly abundant, where is that now? Like, whenever are you fighting for resources, or are you actually standing there just saying like, no, like, put your money where your mouth is now. You're no longer at a retreat in Bali, right? Running from a goddamn monkey that just stole your phone. You're like, this is when we get tested. Like,
you're in the middle of difficulty.
Yeah.
And the third moon is the proving ground.
Yeah,
for sure.
Awesome.
For everything that it is that we actually stand for, it's like whatever it is that we're actually wanting to put forward in the world, the third moon will definitely serve as a proving ground. And so expect, that's, you could say that's generally accessible at all times, but the third moon will for sure put you in a circumstance where you have to, where you actually have to live, or how honest with yourself can you be, to where you say, and others, like your hypocrisy, there's fewer places to hide, your hypocrisy in the third moon. So if you're not actually living, you're not actually walking the talk, we'll know. And like, if you try to hide that hypocrisy from yourself or from other people, you actually end up doing damage. The hiding itself can actually do damage. So embrace the pressure, embrace the trial. I think that's probably the best way to say it. And try to rediscover like a sense of temperance. That's what I wrote, is like, be good, even if the world around you is not. Like, actually try to be good.
There's something about Hurricane Katrina showed me a lot of that, where people just like, when things go down, it's going to be rioting in the streets and things like that. And I'm like, well, we're mean to each other because all of our problems are like social constructs and political based and can be opinion based. But when a wave just washes over your city, we are all equalized again. And there were criminals and gang leaders like using that amazing energy to break into trucks and get water to the elderly in the Superdome.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? And that's an important thing to understand, is I think energy is energy and it can be guided. And in these times of stress, and a lot of it right now is, it sucks to say, because it is kind of right upon us, but it still is a lot of perceived threat, and perceived threat is much more frightening than when you're actually in there just running from the, just when you're actually swimming, you're just like, you're no longer thinking, you're actually present. But when there's a perceived threat around you, it's, our stories start running and we're thinking, if I get this, there's so much fear. And I got
whatever Yeah, whatever threat. No. Whatever threat, I think, because I've had this question asked of me. It's like, when is this gonna go? When is this gonna be done?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't know, but like, I think that I could say that, like, with the dragon moon in particular, I think we'll get a better idea of what the threat actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And that won't stop our stories from going.
Right.
Like, we'll just shift whatever the stories are. But like, I think that, the invitation, and we've heard this a lot, like, from a lot of other speakers and people who are framing these events in different ways. But I think it's important to look at the invitation that these shifts, are offering. That is the opportunity within the third moon. There's all this kind of like cautionary, this idea of like being very cautious with our desire to take advantage. And I think that that's true, because if we're dehumanizing other people, which I think is a real risk in the third moon, is to, kind of looking at everybody as either an obstacle or an asset.
Othering,
I
tribalism.
The othering, the othering, the various ways that we other people is definitely going to be up for us in this third moon for sure. But there can be a much more inventive, much more like dazzling even capacity that we can tap into this moon of like redefining our circumstances and redefining and taking advantage of the opportunities to actually do something very different. So there's a lot of power in the third moon for sure, depending on, what our level of preparation, our integrity, our impeccability, these sorts of things I mentioned before. Being in the dragon moon in a rat year is like having a microscope and a wide angle lens at the same time. So every little thing that we encounter, every little decision that we make, we have the opportunity to frame that within a larger scope of like what brings us meaning and purpose. So, like put in a situation of stress, like it's definitely a proving ground for us to kind of show up in whatever thing that we want to declare. Now there's going to be a lot of people out there that want to declare anything. They don't want to, and that's the risk. Those people who just want what they want, and if that's their main focus, they could be dangerous. Like, straight up.
There was something I was talking to you about earlier before we started recording about, we're reactionary based culture. And
for sure.
I made this one video and I didn't release it because it was a half hour of me. I'm learning online marketing and stuff like that. And in that marketing,
you're doing a great job, by the way. Some of the things I see you release, man, it's really rad.
Well, but my thing is like the wide angle lens versus the minute lens. Like I grew up, my father, taught me how to read the media. He was a psychological warfare kind of dude,
and he was in radio.
Yeah, and he was in radio. He was actually the guy that had the spot, and he turned down the CBS radio job. That when he turned it down, it ended up being Rush Limbaugh took the job. And and then
things could have been different.
yeah. And it's so funny because
let's take one for the team.
Yeah, I know, old man Dan. But we didn't want to go to Buffalo. We had just moved from Iowa, and we had finally moved to Florida, and we were just having a great time. It was warm. We could go to the beach, and then right when we were there, like shortly after, Dad was running these 4 radio stations. I was super young, but he gets this job, and then he was like, it was like winter was coming. It was like we had done the cycle. And we were moving every, it's the theme song of WKRP. I'm got kind of tired of packing and unpacking, and we're always, I think we'd been in like 12 or 13 elementary schools by this time. And I was in the 3rd grade. And that going into it, then he was like, we're not moving to Buffalo, New York, like coming up on winter. Like, he's like, it's going to be another 9 months of snow. And so he said, I'm happy here. We're staying here. And then of course it all fell apart, but that was awesome. However, that being said, I love reading media. And when I was reading this questionnaire on how the most successful marketers do it, like how they have these 100,000 to 7-figure launches of products. It basically all boils down to, how do I stimulate emotional response in you, right? And not emotional response, I need you emotional, because as my teachers would always say, emotions make you stupid. And so if I can get you emotional, then I can get you making stupid decisions of buying these products. And
I can manipulate you.
Yeah. And that being said, when I was reading the questionnaire, it was all fear mongering. It was like, what do you fear? And then how to solve that fear problem, how to put your face in, or your product in front of these people and let them know that not only can you actually, you are the solution to their fears, but you're going to actually heighten their status, right? You're going to heighten their status. Like how, so first of all, it was, what are you afraid of? What are these people afraid of? How do you fear? And I kept highlighting how fear was in almost every question asked. And then after that, it moved to the, how do you offer solutions? And all the solutions were vanity or status or, pounding on your chest, ego based. And I was like, okay, here we are. And now how do I start, because all of my work is around personal responsibility. I don't care about your ego. I care about, again, how do you respond under stress? So if you're a monkey and then someone tries to take your toilet paper, do you punch the old lady, or do you just be like, all right, there's 5 of them in here, take some, right? So,
well, this is what we've been under. These are the mechanisms we've been under. These aren't new mechanisms.
No. It's the mind.
We've been
I mean,
We've been under the influence of these mechanisms since the early 19th century. Easily 100 years, we've been under this kind of pressure. And we've been conditioned easily 100 years. We've been conditioned in this way.
And how do you make people afraid of something, right? That's, colonizers, the British nailed it. That's what they do. And so that being said, how do we look at psychopath, yet a genius human being, Gandhi? How do we look at Gandhi and watch how he did not fight the power? He just walked to the solution. And that was it. So how do you not fight this idea? Because so many people that I talk to are, it's just money. But when I was a child, having to make my living without money, because I've been on my own since I was very young. I had a teacher say it's currency, time, energy, and money. And so, like, how do we devote time? How do we devote energy? And how do we do things to create a value? And then, money is very important, but also looking at these other things, time and energy, like skill, things like that.
Well, these are the attributes of humanity. These are the attributes of culture. And those, even though we've been under this duress and this conditioning for the last 100 years, those have been around much longer. And so I feel that those will continue to persist. I think that it's inevitable that those things will continue to persist, insofar as we do as a human species. As long as we're here, I think we have this opportunity to be a part of a culture, a shared culture. And knowledge holders and cultural holders and medicine people, like genuine medicine people, these are great reservoirs, and traditions like these that we're talking about, these are great reservoirs of awakening us up to something that's very innate, I think, for us, but requires cultivation, because it takes time and it takes energy to actually walk in whatever culture. They all speak sort of the same thing. How do we
Oh, you cut out. There you are.
I'm sorry. I was not expecting that. They all speak to the same thing, talking about time and culture. They all speak to the same thing, which is like, how do we treat each other and how do we treat the world? Because those things are not separate. They're very much the same. And this is a big part of the illness that we have in this. Sorry, I cut it out again.
Do you keep getting phone calls?
Yes. I'm putting on airplane mode. I forgot to do that. So so this is a very much a part of like what troubles this culture is that we don't really have an agreed upon understanding of what it means to be a human being.
Yeah.
Because they really want to keep stimulating us in the way that you're talking about.
Okay, so let's just jump to, all right, so let's go to the other thing that everyone loves about Scott's readings.
Yeah.
What is, okay, quick auspices. Go.
For the third moon?
Yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Yeah. Auspicious.
For the third, put it all together. What this moon is very good for is just put it all together. If you've got something on the burner that you've actually been working on, this is a good time to put it all together and just use whatever you have.
Okay.
Like there's no right way or wrong way to do it. Just put it all together.
Okay.
And because the pressure that you'll have in working with that and working on your preparations will actually tell you about like what your actual relationship is to it.
Okay.
If I'm doing it just for the money and not because I care about it, not because I'm invested or I actually want it to be useful in some kind of context, if I'm just doing it for some ulterior motive or some kind of personal satisfaction, you'll find out. And
okay,
so I think it's important to look at those things.
All right, I'm gonna yes and you.
Okay.
This is a calling out to a lot of people that right now. I purposely did not buy stock in Zoom when this happened because I don't want to support. I love Zoom. We're using it right now, but
yeah,
what I didn't want to do is jump on that reactionary thing. I said, all right, if I have money to invest, I'm going to invest in something that I believe in, not just in capitalizing on people frantically trying to make their money. So you said if we're just doing it for the money, this is another thing that I noticed as a musician. We just started needing attention so bad, and you know this because you ran a bar and you booked me as a solo artist and as a band all the time, and you always,
it's my pleasure, man.
And you always paid me, and
and it would suck if I didn't.
Yeah. And you have no idea how much stupid shit I would do if you didn't pay me. So that being said, when this all went down, what I think really uncovered, and and also I want to talk about the essence of the word apocalypse, which the root of the word means to reveal or uncover. And it's not the end of the world, but when it uncovers a bunch of bullshit, you might think it's the end of your world because you've been living a lie. Right. So the thing that this has uncovered is how important attention is to us as a culture and how important that is as a currency, yet it's not making us any happier. So things like how many people just how are we going for not even just doing it for money? We're just seeking attention, and and as opposed to like reaching out and giving something of value and just being calm. And I love the fact that social media is now actually being used for social purposes again.
Right.
It's not, you're not just some weird voyeur, like looking at your old high school chums being like, yeah, I'm glad they gained weight. It's like, there's so much of that bullshit going on.
I don't feel so bad about myself.
Yeah.
Well, all of this is all risky. From a wisdom standpoint in the tradition that I practice, like these are titillations, all these different explorations and but the riskiness of is that it's reinforcing identity.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're social animals. This is a rat year. This is but like, there's always a chance here. It's like a drug, and it keeps us from, awareness of either if we're getting really meditation oriented, like it keeps us from maybe an awareness of our own true nature, from whether the Buddhist or a Taoist standpoint. It's a major distraction. But it also tends to provide like social cohesion. So like I'm actually much more interested in talking about money because the last rat year was the 2008 period of time where we just experienced this major, and now here we are again.
Yeah.
And I think the opportunities, in 2008 we were dealing with an Earth rat year. Earth rat year is more about stability. So most all the people with money got more money. in the bailout. And the rest of us tend to got screwed. There's all this documentation about how it was an opportunity to basically steal, for the rich to steal like large swaths of home ownership out from underneath, hundreds and thousands of individuals that were trying to keep their homes but couldn't, right? So there's these sort of like what I would call travesties, but what it was done in an earth rat year, and the earth rat year was about like upholding, where the wealth is at. So in the context of this particular country, which is very focused on class divisions, whether you like it or not, whether you admit it or not, it's a fact, of being here. So now coming into 2020 with a metal rat, I think there's an opportunity here for self-reflection about how deeply, particularly, Wall Street influences our lives. That didn't used to be the case. If we look back in history, Wall Street was for those people, crazy ass people that wanted to get involved in some kind of formalized gambling, right? But now it's been brought into to affect the mainstream so deeply. I know people that have like retirement accounts that just lost like $12,000, right? Because all of their assets, are like tied into the movements of Wall Street. This is not accidental. It was very much an orchestrated, since the 80s, it's very orchestrated in order for those people with money to get access to more money, to get everybody, all the mom and pop and all the people not with a lot of assets, involved in something so that those people who have money can make more money. And some people have done very well in this, but now I think there's an opportunity here to think about like, how well does this actually serve this sort of baseline Main Street people in a localized way being able to relate to each other? Like all these ways that we could actually be more involved as a community, I think are getting highlighted in this as the systems that we've been understanding breaking down. We're seeing what actually does work for us in this localized context and what does not. And I think that that's really the opportunity. I have a long way to go because there's still so much to break down. And I don't know if the machine is actually going to really allow us to go that far. But I think we'll get even more clarity, in the next two moons, but in particularly in this moon.
So I got an email from a hedge fund manager that I do body work for, and he's a financial expert guy, and also has been, he's very, 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 he's like a yogi and just super. He's just a badass, and I love this guy.
Sounds intense.
And he's been a champion of my work for a really long time, but he sent me a really cool article. I'll copy and paste it I'll put a little link up on that, but it's hold on. It's just, I mean, basically, he's just like talking about a really cool article, from a, let's see, about playing politics with crisis, right? And so how people are there are actually people right now fighting to, as they put it, trying to prevent a complete corporate takeover of the nation, right? And so the people are watching, and he has it broken down, like there's been 50 billion for airlines, 150 billion for anyone, like like Boeing, speeding up payments to defense contractors, all these things. And it's in these times, and this is something that's really important. It's just like with our technology and our tools, how much of our lives have we outsourced to these tools solving our problems for us, right? It's kind of, that's the idea of like, that you have a problem, technology creates a problem, but then that creates another problem, which we need more technology to do it. Or you have money, and then it's like, I learned that there is a line where it's like, there's a certain amount of money you can get until you have to have a lot more money in order to manage that certain amount of money. And and so I think we're, hopefully we can understand that and start seeking that kind of that like middle ground. And
I don't know, we've swum so far downstream, it'd be very difficult it is difficult at this point to imagine what that would look like. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I know people that they just go to the other extreme, like thinking about like our sister B up north, and you know, she's just like, I don't care about any of this. I'm going straight off grid. I'm just going to grow my own food. I go into the
Yeah.
farmer's market, like, and so not everybody's going to do that. Not everybody can do that.
Well,
And
not
not
everyone
everybody
can.
should do that.
Mhm.
Not everybody should do that. Like,
Yeah.
I think that there's been, there was one article that I read a while back that talked about, like, if you really love nature, don't go into it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
actually stay in the cities, and a good city is well organized, and leave nature out of it, you know, and
Yeah.
like that would actually give nature an opportunity to just simply be nature and to recover, you know, from the impacts of our movements. And like we see this now with, like, you know, streams and oceans, not oceans, but like definitely waterways recovering, and air quality in China is the best it's ever been. And like, so yeah, these are teaching moments. But we swung so far down the stream from like how we've treated these tools, and I don't think we've, in our recent memory, probably have to go back to the antitrust legislation in the early part of the 19th century, to like break up, like, where we've had like huge companies having such a dramatic influence on our life. And even back then, you know, there's like no real comparison between the influence then and how pervasive the influence is now. Like our means of communication, everything, you know, like back then we could, you know, take a journey and go to somebody's porch and sit and talk to them forever. Now, like, we have to rely on a corporate entity for us to have this conversation, you know. So like, there's a lot of different ways to untangle all of these things. I don't know. Like, I think it would take some time and a concerted amount of effort. And there's so much momentum going in this direction. I think people will start panicking when, like, you know, you hear these things online about like how they're going to, you know, mandate vaccinations, and in every vaccination there's gonna be a tracking device, you know, that actually tells you how many vaccinations you've had, you know. And like, once it gets to these very invasive steps, will there be anybody around to resist it? You know, who knows? Would it ever go that way? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like, this is all of these things, all of these sorts of contemplations about like what the role is of community between each other, what can we expect from each other. I mean, we've been so conditioned to product. We've been so conditioned, all of our lives been conditioned to product. I think a lot of us don't necessarily have a way of understanding how we're supposed to relate to each other, and what we're supposed to get from each other, what we need from each other.
Yeah.
So as all these structures have kind of like fell apart, you know, we're sort of left trying to figure that out, which is wonderful. Like, I don't know a single person that's not like really loving all this at some level, but there's some deeper questions to ask. And I think all of those will be up for us this year.
Yeah. And it's habit building.
Not just this year, but this moon for sure.
Yeah, we will see, you know, this is also, it's a shaking of the Etch-a-Sketch, and you know, you're just kind of seeing. I remember when I was in restaurants and you would get really, really, really heavy in the weeds. The main thing you would do is you wouldn't keep working harder. You would stop, you know, like you slow down, clean your station, go into the walk-in, make sure everything is there, make sure everything is full, so then you can like pull up that line of tickets, and then you just start working, and mise en place, everything in its place. And so this is kind of I mean, you know me, I've been trying to get 20 uninterrupted minutes for 2 years now, and so in order to
and now that you have it,
oh man, I'm crushing it. I love it. Yeah, so I love roller skating, you know, and I'm doing a lot of the things that I love, but I'm also doing a lot of the things that I'm lucky to have had an opportunity, like, because my life was this, like, my life was, you have nothing and you have a tremendous responsibility to something that you have no idea how to make it happen. And you know, I mean, I had my dad who was sick. We really didn't have health insurance or anything like that. And I was a kid, and we were trying to just make ends meet. And my brother and I were working very young, and And this was at a time where it was like under the table stuff, and I was doing things that were like dangerous and illegal, and I was doing things that were, and then people that would hire me for legal jobs, it was illegal for them to do it. And then I, was touring in bands, and I was always like that kid back, in a club that I'm not allowed to be in because it's 21 and
the
up.
80s.
And, yeah, the 80s and the 90s. And it's all that stuff. And you're sitting there. So it sort of, like what was a shitty situation for a kid also gave me a lot of freedom. And then it gave me a lot of creativity. And creativity to me is having to solve a problem with the lack of resources. And so this is something where, like that's probably why a lot of people keep calling me, because they know like, okay, we have this problem now. And, it's hard to zoom out. Like you're the dragon, zoom out. And
zoom out. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the other
wide angle? Yeah.
Yeah. What are the other resources? And then go back in and feel it, and then zoom back out. And then that's what fighters are always doing. You get in there, you fight, and then you get back out, clear your space to where you can be like, all right, I see this, I see what I'm packing. I need to get
see my opening. There it is.
It's like, yeah. And hopefully we can start like embracing the stress, because stress is the integrator. It's the integrator. And it integrates it.
And I think that the important step and the important note that I would make, when it comes to the third moon, is don't think you have the whole picture figured out.
Right.
So like if try to take it step by step with the larger idea in mind. But don't think that like, well, once because you hear this a lot of people are saying, this is all gonna take us to X. We will find this at the end of all this process. That's baloney. Like, you don't know. Like, that's how big it is, right? You can't know. Some people might have like an inkling toward it. Those people, other dragons, they might have like a very strong view about like where this is all headed. And as I said in the yearly talk, is like, yeah, everybody's waiting for dragons to speak this year. And like, that's good. We should look to them, and this would be also the third moon would be the place that's the time to start listening, and for other dragons to start speaking if they feel like they have something to say or something to offer.
For a weird thing, like I did a very, very, very long meditation yesterday after a 3-hour roller skate session, because you skated out, and it's hashtag metascape, metascation, and skate then meditate. That's what I do. I don't Netflix and chill. I fucking skate.
I skate and meditate.
And
oh my god.
And so but literally at the end of it, like there was this whole thing that just started just saying like, in the back of my mind, there was, I just kind of got almost like teary, and it was just saying, the thing in the back of my head was like, hey, you have a voice now. And, I've always had a voice, this, but I've always kept it here in the open mat, because if you're not looking for me, I'm going to annoy the shit out of you. And, because I rarely give anyone not taking responsibility. Like I me, when I teach people, I've been trying to teach forms forever. And I always say like, I'm not your leader. If you want me to stand in front of a class and count to 10 over and over again, I want $500 an hour from you. But if you want to come here and learn, I'll damn near give it to you for free, because I want you.
And you have. And you have.
I've done it for decades.
You have. You definitely have. I've been the longest student you've had, and like that's definitely one of the most amazing. Yeah, the generosity in that regard is definitely noteworthy.
But it's because in times like this, you're capable, and you're not fighting to go, oh my God, where's that person that counts to 10 for me? Right. Where's that person that holds me accountable? Yeah. Because I can't hold you accountable for shit. You're the only person you're accountable to. And like, even someone goes, well, I'm accountable to my children. And I go, you can walk out on your children anytime you want. People do it all the time.
Yeah.
But you will be accountable to yourself and your weird drinking habit that you probably create when you're laying in bed realizing you walked out on your kids. right? Like there's the shame spiral, there's all these things, but all of those things are a result of really the only person you're accountable to is yourself. And so as a martial artist, I teach form, I teach sequences, I teach all of these things in order to where when this is going on, everyone is sitting at home being able to be present, not like trying to get away from their thing to be able to find out the person that stands in front of them and
to have distractions.
Yeah. Like no one's accountable to me. Just like, make sure that I'm not homeless, please. Stuff like that.
Yeah. But yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different, I mean, these are arts. These are arts for a reason. Yeah. And that's the point. Like the art, I mean, martial arts, like every other art that's out there is really about the art of living. Yeah. And it always has been, like, and so I think that's for me, if I'm going to advocate anybody study any kind of art, obviously I'm going to be partial to the martial arts, but like not everybody's inclined to that.
Of course.
But if you can study an art, period, then I think that it gives you an opportunity to have an art of living as well. So, and these are the things that we need in the third moon. We need these things because they give us an opportunity to not just relate to ourselves in a much more capable way. I'm going to say like deeper way, but it's just really about like noting our responses, being present with ourselves, in space and time, and being able to adapt to pressure, without like panicking and looking for some sort of external solution. There isn't one. Not any as reliable as the one that you generate with yourself, and like that's the art of living for sure.
And I think right now we can see what we own. When we talk about teaching, it's always you can only give what you own. And when I was when I work with teachers, it's like, what do you own? And you can own being a beginner. Like you can say, like, you can actually stand there and say, right. Like I've been talking to a lot of people about this roller skating thing, and they're just like, how did you learn to roller skate? And I'm like, well, I'm really good at being a beginner. Like I didn't even roll. Like so many people get onto roller skating and they hurt themselves. Like, they start rolling, they fall, they hurt their wrist. It's not fun. And I didn't get hurt because I didn't roll for a week or two. I did it all on carpet, really thick carpet. And I was literally wearing my stunt pads. So like I had like hip pads on. So if I fell down, my
I like this.
Was
I like this.
Yeah.
I want to learn. Learn.
I'm hyper safe. And because I know that gravity
bubble wrap.
Yeah. And I took forever, but like taking that extra week or two of not rolling and just building the right muscles and comfort around it.
Right, exactly.
Launched me months ahead. So like when I was actually on, like, so I went from thick carpet to thinner carpet. And then I still didn't roll. Then I went to a hard surface and still didn't roll. I was holding onto something and just wiggled my feet in little air. And, I'm such a slow, but that's the Tao. Like nature never hurries and accomplishes everything, and
right.
And hopefully
learning how to learn. Learning how to learn. Yeah, for sure.
And when that happens, it's and that's yoga. That's just sequencing. Like, what do we need to sequence in order to make this happen? And I hope we can start seeing
so true
the poetry of all these arts that we learn. Like yoga is prepping us to have that inner peace, to be able to walk into something that is a little bit more uncontrollable, which is nature, which would be martial arts, right? And then that brings us into social constructs, which are hopefully empowered people making calm decisions, or people that maybe we're learning whether or not all these dumbass memes and like, whether Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson standing there flexing his biceps has really inspired people to be better, because now we're reacting now that things aren't going well. Right. And I hope that, I love Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm a huge fan, actually.
Essential.
I just watched my buddy Nick Frost from Into the Badlands. I watched his movie last night. First movie I've seen in a long time. Fighting with My Family. Oh yeah. So good. And it's got some of my favorite people in it, because I love the WWE guys. I don't watch it.
So great. No, yeah.
They're just amazing, just humans. I was their chef. I cooked for them, and it was awesome.
Well, it's like it's like the roles that, like, in the culture in Mexico, the Mexican wrestlers play. They're like you know, sort of real life superheroes, but with all these sort of like amazing foibles. You know, like they're sort of larger than life caricatures of humanity. You know, like when you think about all those different figures in WWE, right? They all had these certain iconic looks or iconic roles that they were playing. It's just like really super entertaining. I didn't really get into it either, but like, but just like the imagery and what they provided to the culture is actually quite complex.
So in kindergarten, we lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. I think I was in kindergarten. I was like maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 or something. And I was back when my dad was in radio, but he also worked for NASCAR, and it's Charlotte Motor Speedway. And we lived in these townhouses, and at the top of the hill were there's other houses, and a young man by the name of Ric Flair lived at the top of that. Lived at the top of that hill, and I believe it was Ric Flair that, you know, it was banana boards, and you just go down this big hill on your banana boards, and his steroided out ass challenges me to like stack like 4 on top of each other. So you know, and it's awesome Ric Flair. So like, of course I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't know, 4, and that was one of the first times I actually just going down 4 skateboards, right? Stacked 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going down, and my first lesson in physics was when 4 skateboards hit a speed bump. The top skateboard just and I just went like just Pete Rose belly flop, you know, just slid, and I was wearing this like so screw you, Ric Flair.
No bubble wrap in those days. And so the moral of the lesson is that this is why I learned roller skating on big carpet.
And the moral of that story is like, Ric Flair, you inspired a young stuntman.
You do so much for us.
Or as we say it to Ric Flair, woo! You know, like that was his whole. But I love those guys. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to say about us going into this new?
I mean, I be nice. Just be nice. Try to be nice to each other. Be generous, you know. And I think it's something you mentioned actually earlier about like pairing intelligence with wisdom. You know, people's expertise, they'll be wearing it on their sleeve, whether it's like accredited, you know, and earned, or, you know, self-proclaimed, you know. So like expect a lot of people to have like a ton of different opinions, but like, you know, it's really about, those things have no meaning unless they're paired with generosity. It's like how you treat people that really matters, not really what you know. And so I think that that's a very important thing to remember as we use this vigor, this like kind of returning vigor to kind of pursue what we want. Is you know, people are not objects. You know, that other human beings have goals and dreams as well, you know, and like things that they're working with. So I think it's just important to double down, you know, on the generosity and kindness as much as possible. Like I said, like be good, even if the world around you is not, because it most likely won't be. You know, like the world around us might get somewhat ruthless, especially as we're dealing with these sort of reactive patterns of our own insecurity. I think there can be potential here for a lot of intensity, you know, both on a societal level and then potentially in government's response. So I think it's important to try to keep things in context and stay calm and like be good to each other. You know, band together with other good people. I think is a really good opportunity this year, because those are the kinds of people you're going to be depending on. And when we get to summer, those are the kinds of people that we're going to really be celebrating together, because the third moon is really about us preparing for Yang's ascension, you know, in the summer months. So the way we conduct ourselves now basically determines the kind of really helps to determine the kinds of the things we enjoy when summer comes to fulfillment. Yang Qi comes to fulfillment because it's coming, so depending on the kinds of preparations that we make now will help determine what it is that we enjoy. And I think a lot of that has to do with the kinds of connections we make with people and why we connect with people that we do. If we're just doing it out of some sort of mutual advantage, then I think that things could, betrayal and, a mishap is quite likely. But if you can actually get into the meat of kindness and generosity with each other, then I think it could be a very rich time, come summer. Everybody's under stress, and stress is good. But living a good life means living a good life with other people. So if we can step forward into those principles of how we want to live a good life, then I think it could really pay off come summertime. But it's really about how we conduct ourselves now.
Yeah. When I talk to people about intelligence and wisdom, there's this piece where I think we make it too complex, and really what it is intelligence is learning things, and your fundamentals, and then wisdom is being able to integrate those into cause and effect. And I think inside a lot of our own personal freedoms and personal truths that we can land inside a social construct like now, you can let your freak flag fly, whenever, but now it's a really important time to see that, yes, freedom also needs to also run in tandem with consideration, right? It's that idea of,
it's all in a context. All in a context. And if this is the very much a problem that we have in this society, is that we think math is neutral. Math is not neutral. Math is always in a context. In the context of us living as human beings in this world. So we create these really amazing, advancements in technology that then end up putting a whole bunch of people out of work. Did we really need that?
Yeah. Fucking
did
drum
we
machine.
Really? Did we? Yeah. Did we really? Yeah. Studio musicians on the street. Did we really need that?
Because listen to theme songs from 80s sitcoms and then now. You'll never get another Barney Miller. You'll never get another Jeffersons. You'll never get another Cheers. You'll never get any of those. It's like Good Times. Listen to Good Times song. And then yeah. That's all done on a computer. I've even done that.
And so many, if we're talking about entertainment, all the movies, they're all made, they're so many things on green screens using, graphic, instead of people making model sets and using, innovative camera work to really do those Charlie Chaplin, that one Charlie Chaplin shot that's so amazing that you'll never see that now. And I'm not here to say one is better than the other. Obviously, I have a prejudice in that regard. What I'm trying to call attention to is any advancements in technology or intellect really should be kind of put in a particular context, with the full understanding. Because the reason why a lot of these technologies, especially now, have developed is because, if we don't, someone else will, and they'll make the money. So that's why we're doing it and putting you out of work. And I think that's a very, very short-sighted way of being in community, with other human beings. But we don't really have another option, and so maybe we will finally develop one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason. One of the reasons why I practice what I do is because I'd like to offer the idea of what it means to be a human being, because the messages we have in that regard in this culture so far are lacking. They're really lacking in a lot of satisfaction for people.
There's something that,
know it or not.
One of the struggles that I have to force myself, and there was that, speaking of force yourself, there was, so when all this stuff started going down, and then I sort of knew that everything was going to be, live streaming classes and stuff like that. But I'm not really going. Well, I've been working on, I work with people, I've been working with people all over the world, and instead of traveling to them, I came back after a long stint. And then when I came back, I realized I didn't want to travel that much, because I like it here, and I feel I want to learn how to garden and make things and stuff like that. So I was like, I woke up every morning at like 4 and I Googled how to make your own Netflix, and I just started learning how to do video stuff and all these things. And so I've been setting this up for over a year, and failing miserably for like 10 and a half months. And only since December, I'm getting it a little bit better. But when I see everyone jumping in, I'm noticing that we're jumping into reactionary, and it's good. This is good. Like, we're using social media to be social. We're jumping into like live streaming courses, but people are leaving but really, I hope we start seeing the fact that it's Sting, it's message in a bottle. Like, you're calling out, but now you get to see that there's a million other bottles have washed up on the shore as well. Like, Sting was right about a lot of stuff. If you love someone, set them free.
Yeah.
Message in a bottle.
Messages,
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't stand so close to me. Yeah. Stuff like that. I mean, come on. You know what I mean? It's, and I mean, I hope the Russians love their children too. You know what I mean? It's like all that stuff. God. So I mean, that's rad. Not a big fan of Fields of Gold, whatever. However, that being said, when this is all done, like, if it's not about, I've been asked a lot to teach streaming classes online, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm doing is stuff like this, and what I'm doing is talking to people and doing other courses, and doing one-on-ones. But I think now more than ever is just calling for our own understanding our own personal responsibility to work with a teacher and then practice for a month. And that's why forms were taught. It was like, you would learn something, you would stay with your teacher for a little bit, you would learn the thing, and then you could go away. If you're on the Silk Road, you go back into your lifestyle and do it. I don't need, it's not going for, I don't want to invest too much into something that once this is over, not only, I mean, it's kind of like, I remember in Ireland, it's always cold and rainy, and then the day the sun comes out, every business just empties and everyone's out into the streets. And so now we have been cooped up inside.
It's the reverse.
Yeah. And so how to not make reactionary decisions, because as a fighter, if I can put you on the defense where you're just constantly trying to put out fires, I'm now manipulating you. And so I really hope that we can see that this is that attack. And if we can see that attack is opening up other opportunities, as opposed to just focusing on defending the attack or putting our mind. So many people are like, oh my God, how am I going to come out this with money? Because I'm losing money now. So how do I make money?
Right.
And so we're just focusing on what's being taken from us, as opposed to like the awareness. What's been given to us is better air. What's been given to us is a realization that we're all fragile. Like, this whole thing can be shut down by something we can't control. And I think that's what martial arts teaches you. Like, you're much bigger than me, but if I can get some glitter and go into your eyeball, you're done. And then I'm going to and then after that, I'm going to commence to, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to kick you in the balls over and over and over again.
Right.
That's how I would win.
That's a 12-second takedown with a little bit of glitter.
Blow it up. Boom, boom. And then like that glitter is these tiny little things. It's that little bacteria. It's that, and
it's all about the little things.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
It's rad.
But if this moon, if I made it really, really simple, I'd say, embrace your genius. And like, you have tools at your disposal that you can use, just to understand that you're using them in a context, in a very particular context. And don't depersonalize the situation. Actually, just work within the context and work with what you got. I think it would actually go like it'll do super well. You know, it's like developing our direction into the summer for sure.
Yeah.
Even if our circumstances are limited, or more limited than we had this time last year or at the beginning of the year, doesn't matter. You know, you can adapt.
What are you doing to stay healthy? What are you doing?
I am doing the Yama series, which is
nice. Awesome.
Some indoor. I've got a little really cool deck out here that is not so fun to practice on when it's raining. So I think that today I'll do most of my practice indoors for the first time. I've usually done it right outside here. But yeah, the Persian series that we do, the Yama series that we do.
That's going up this week. I'm editing right now. Yeah. Well, not right now.
Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. In general right now. So a lot of those things is basically what I do. I've gone out for a few hikes, which I mean, I have to say, man, like everybody is out for a hike. So it's actually more dangerous than the grocery store.
Yeah, that's I went to go on a hike. I'm lucky I have motorcycles, right? So I'll go to those.
Yeah, you can go way out there.
Yeah, I'll go way out. And motorcycles tend to have places that you want to go on a motorcycle that places people in cars don't really go that much because it's fun and it's out of the way. But when I would go to these certain places, I wanted to go on a little local hike the other day, and I just went in. And this is at a time where I just read about social distancing, and it's just people are just like literally brushing shoulder to shoulder, baby carriage, and it's like, nah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. And, so there's a little bit of that, but I think by and large, like I'm not necessarily walking around in fear, you know, when it comes to this current circumstances. So I get out in nature as much as possible.
Yeah.
It's really nice. There's plenty of hills around where I live. And so that's a good way to stay healthy. But other than that, just like eating lots of greens.
Yeah.
Drinking lots of tea.
Yeah. This is like, you know, I have one room is the dojo is still set up. So I got my bags and everything in there, and
that's so great.
I have a full dojo, and then the other dojo is all the mats are up because that's where I'm roller skating. And then I have my audio set up here, and then a video editing suite downstairs. And then
Wonderland.
And then the garden is going,
Wonderland.
and then I set up my yoga mat. I have a couple of yoga. I set those up on my roof because I have a flat roof outside my windows upstairs. So it's like, and there's all that.
That's never coming out.
No, I was like, you know, and I have, I mean, there's plenty to do around here and there's plenty to practice. And just so happens I started moving most of my business to online stuff. So there's that. But I do miss everybody, you know, I mean, I admit that's why.
Yeah, I've been wondering about that. I'm like, I mean, I can't imagine that you would not miss like the, you know, 30 odd regular people that come streaming through and like kicking out on the chairs. And I mean, we all miss you. And like, so it's going to be really great to get back together again, you know, sooner than later, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or whenever it happens. But it's also must be also a nice change of pace.
Well, I've just been trying to do this because like the first few classes that I did were for you guys. Like I did Yama series, I did the 5 elements,
right.
I did all the things that are kind of specific to the classes. And it wasn't about the public, but now that I've done that,
it can be.
Yeah, now it's about other people. And I just did an interview just released with Backstage magazine in the UK about like how actors can take care of themselves in this time and nervous system stuff. But I don't think people understand, like you guys know this. I don't teach classes for any other reason than I love the people that I teach. And there are,
that's a great baseline.
Yeah. And they can't, there are a lot of people that can afford a premium, you know, I mean, and I just got done working on another movie and all that stuff. So once those people can pay the premium, but then there's other people that can not only benefit, but can devote even more. Cause like when you're working with people that are, there's not too many, you know, people working on these movies that are devoting on a level. Like I still work with Daniel, you know, and he's I always devoted to his practice, but he was devoted before he was a movie star. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, and it's hard to,
is a practice, or is the martial arts basically an extension of the job, or is it something that they're actually, and it's extension of them?
Yeah. Cause, you know, the thing that nailed what actors are on The Most Perfect Thing was Gilligan's Island. Remember, like, it was just like whenever, like, Ginger always had some solution.
Gilligan's Island nailed a lot of things.
Yeah. And it was always like whenever they were in a situation, Ginger would be like, you know what, I played a blah 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 in a movie about,
right,
and then she always had like the solution.
She had some obscure like knowledge,
Yeah, way to solve. Yeah. And it's really funny when you work with actors. Yeah. and like,
I know how to draw blood.
Yeah, I'll work with actors sometimes, and you're like, how do you know all this? Like, just like you have a million, like, the surface of a million little things, and it's so funny to like watch that because you're just like, because they're like, yeah, I was in a movie, I had to learn to drive race cars, or yeah, I was in a movie, I had to learn. This is awesome.
Yeah. I've been all these people in my life.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's why I like working with actors, is because you have to take all this stuff and like whittle it down into the essence of what it is. Of like, all you're doing all the time is just like getting your state of mind into get really present, get really focused, and become a thing very quickly. And I like that, but I also know that can only go so far. Like, because the reason why they can look good is it's still like, if your footwork sucks, we just put the camera from here up, right? If you're, and then if we need a show, then we'll bring your stunt double in, and then we'll just film their feet,
Right.
And that's the thing that I've learned. And in this work, then there's people like you, there's people like, anyone that's come in here, 3, 4, 5 days a week, and practicing on their own. That's the thing, is like, you guys practice on your own. So I know you will continue your health path.
Oh yeah. Can't wait to get back in there. But yeah, it's definitely like trying to keep the edge sharp.
Yeah. It's like,
keep things fresh.
Yeah. It's like, what I want to do a couple things for you guys. Are going to get the Persian sequence coming up soon and stuff like that.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. I have some gaps in my knowledge on that. So yeah.
Okay. It'll be up.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for doing this. Let's continue doing this, regularly.
For sure.
And so again, we are going into, I'll put your information up. Subtle Sense is how you can email you for readings. And
and I'll have my website of functional hopefully by the end of quarantine, but definitely by the end of the year. Awesome. So there'll be, I'll be able to put up a lot of stuff. I just recently wrote all this stuff out for the Metal Dragon Moon. So if anybody wants to get it, just hit me up.
It's funny. What I want to do right now is, so I don't know if you, on my screen, I'm like just up in the top right corner, right? But I
in
really
the lower right. Yeah.
Okay. I want to do a little scenario where we need to get 6 of us, like, and stack us, and so we can all do the beginning of the Brady Bunch, where we're all like,
there's a story.
You're looking at, you're looking around at each other. It's so hard for me to not want to do that.
No, we definitely should do that.
So I gotta get a bunch of other people up on a Zoom call, but cool, man. And all right, I'll talk to you sooner than later, and let me know if you need anything. And love you, man.
Cool. I appreciate that, brother. I love you too. All right. Bye.
See ya. Bye.